The client came to Winter Architecture with a very specific brief. They had a number of properties, this being one of them, and they wanted to renovate it. It was in quite a poor condition. The front room had mould, there was no natural light, the existing conditions and layout were really poor. Basically our brief was to make it a most livable, comfortable space for a family. So we created 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and increased the livability of the space by reducing the floor area and creating these open courtyards that connect and flow through the floor plate. So when you're in the lounge space in the dining room, they all flow through together, so all the doors slide away, and there's an interplay in these courtyards in between different levels. So when you're in the courtyard, you can actually interact with the people up in the bedrooms. So as a parent with small children or even a fluffy baby, you can interact with them from multiple levels of the home. The kitchen hasn't been compromised, it's been increased in scale, so we have a large central island. We've used laminate because it's a really durable surface that can handle, minimum of 10 years of renting with a family environment. We don't have any handles. Everywhere is minimal, touch to open, clean line. The joinery lines up, but it's flexible enough that it has older appliances can be substituted. So it doesn't have an integrated dishwasher, it doesn't have an integrated fridge, but it has, standard stuff, but looks good, and as a set looks, really quite beautiful. It's important to remind everyone that you don't necessarily have to have the biggest budgets to achieve beauty or sensible architectural design. We really thought about the colour for the cladding. So one of the briefs as a rental was that we needed to make sure it was quite robust and cleanable and maintainable. So we've gone with really robust materials and colour-bond cladding with no seams in between. We've gone with a particular colour which has a touch of green in it. It's called woodland grey. We can't really facilitate much gardenscape in this environment because it's too urban, too dense. So we've got low maintenance planter boxes, so whoever moves in can actually put veggies, grow whatever plants would be specific to them in pots, and then they can take them away. And what we find with the courtyard and the rendered wall is there's a lot of reflected light that comes in through the spaces, and at different times of the day you'll have access to sunrise, sunsets from all through the space. And it also is really cleverly designed so you can't see the built form from the street. It doesn't impede any of the heritage facades of the neighbouring buildings. In terms of winter architecture and the way that we've managed to transform this space is we've thought carefully about what the spaces need, what kinds of light can travel through the space, and then spending the money on the materials and finishes that can form the longest and be the most robust, but also be beautiful. And then in areas where we could be more cost effective and efficient with spaces, we've just gone for more streamlined, functional design pieces. I think the challenge for most people when they start their own project is to think, we have a site, we want all these rooms and spaces, so we're going to go right to the edges and we're going to create as much backyard as possible. Sometimes we have to think a little bit backwards in going forward. So in this particular occasion, we've restricted going into the backyard by aligning it with all the neighbours in the heritage line. We've kept it lower facing west, so the sun in summer doesn't come through, but in winter it can, so we've really controlled that. So those spaces can become habitable and usable spaces. But the courtyard was particularly difficult for the client to understand why we needed such a big courtyard. We may have not necessarily needed to have a larger courtyard, but without the larger courtyard, without the alignment, without the space that might not necessarily be occupied at all times of the year, that sense of openness and that sense of light and that sense of expanse wouldn't work and couldn't be achieved. And I think it's not all spaces have to be occupied. In other words, sometimes it's important to have spaces to just look out on and reflect on, and that can create more joy in the experience in the everyday than you might ever imagine.